Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/ironsysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/ironsysadmin. And thank you. Are you a fan of the Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/IronSysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/IronSysadmin. And thank you. News, ops, and a little bit of paranoia. Welcome to the Sysadmin podcast. All right, folks, welcome to tonight's episode of the Sysadmin podcast. I'm your host, Nate, and tonight I am joined by Uncle Marc and a special guest, jscar. You may recognize him from chat.
I'm here live. I'm not a cat.
Oh, jeez.
And you're an actual person, right?
That's what a cat would say.
Apparently, I've missed out on a joke. I don't know what this is, but I've heard this twice
You
this
haven't
week.
You haven't seen that?
I've practically sworn off the social medias, so perhaps
all right.
That's why.
All right, you do your show stuff. Oh man. Oh yeah. Oh,
we're dropping.
It's one of the funniest. It's one of the funniest things I've seen in recent memory.
That's great. Well, I guess I'll have to watch it after the show, unless we're going to share it with the stream. All right, so tonight we brought in jscar for a fun little topic that I kind of thought up off the top of my head. We were going to do last week. Sorry, folks, for missing last week's show. Something came up family-wise, and we just couldn't do the show. So, and on that topic, I could save this for announcements, but I figure I'll just do it now. Next week's show is probably also going to be canceled. I don't think moved. Things are up in the air. There's a medical procedure happening that got moved, and that's all the details I'm going to give you. So basically, we're not going to have a show next Thursday. Probably we'll pick up with the normal schedule after that. So like, I don't know, the end of March. I guess the second episode in March is probably going to be our next episode. So you're just going to have to live with that.
Of March.
You're just going to have to live with that. Let's see. Oh, there was one other thing I just kind of wanted to tease, and I'm going to add a thing to the stream quick. So if you're not watching live, you're gonna miss this. But right now, there's an additional camera in the stream. And the reason that's there is because we're working on revamping some of the way we use Patreon. You guys are awesome. A lot of people have been giving money to the show with really, I mean, we haven't had a whole lot of perks in the way of Patreon, and I'm trying to fix that. One of those things is going to be a behind-the-scenes Discord channel where on show night, you guys are going to be able to see us do the show, or at least see from my perspective. If you see this camera at the bottom of the the stream, you can see like my desk and my hands moving around, and you can see whatever. Well, in Discord, you'll be able to actually hear us, right? So there'll be some opportunities for perhaps pre-show banter. Maybe we could bring patrons into the show if we want to, because this is all linked through my mixer, so you guys can hear me and I can hear you if you talk to us, if I enable it, of course. So that's a thing that's coming. It may be here before the next show. It all depends on how things pan out the next couple of weeks, but keep that in mind. Basically, I'm going to revamp the tiers on Patreon, and once those are revamped, there'll be links to Discord to give you the proper roles in Discord, and once you have those roles, then you can actually hop into to this channel. So it's a long-winded way of saying we love the patrons, we're trying to give back, and this is how we're going to do it. So let's go ahead and get in. Let's go ahead and get into the topic. What do you think? So tonight's topic, I guess I'm just going to start it off with a little bit of background story. There's a open source thermostat project, which after our last show on home automation, I was talking to Thavri, and he's, because I'm trying to basically find a better thermostat to work with Home Assistant, right? So I've set up Home Assistant. I'm doing some very minor things with it. I managed to get it talk to my 2 Nest thermostats that I have. I have a need for 3 more thermostats because that's just the way my house was set up. We have a lot of thermostats, even though it's not a very large house. There's just the heating zones are broken up. So he finds this open source project for an open source thermostat. I thought, that's awesome. It is Raspberry Pi Zero based, right? So I have a Raspberry Pi Zero sitting right here. Anyone's watching the stream can see this on camera. That's going to be what's powering the thing. There's a custom PCB that needs to be printed, which I already have ordered, and I'm waiting for that to arrive. And there's a whole bunch of components I need to buy, and then some soldering to do, and then a case to print out. There's going to be quite a bit of work, but I've got like a whole stash of parts here as they're arriving over here on the shelf next to my desk. And, well, I'm just really looking forward to actually getting my hands dirty and building this thing. And if it works, I'm going to build 3 of them. Nice.
I like how you slipped in, and a case to print out on my 3D printer.
Yeah,
was
right.
The implied sentence.
Right. So I have
because I have a 3D printer now.
I may as well use that.
Did I tell you I have a 3D printer?
So the whole reason I'm building it, like, you can actually buy these things pre-made. They had a something like a Kickstarter, but it was through a different funding place, and you can go there and you can say, I would like a thermostat, and here's $130 or something, and they'll build it for you and send it to you. They have their own manufacturing facility and everything. Well, not their own. They have a manufacturing plant building stuff for them.
They have a 3D printer.
They have a 3D printer and people that can solder and whatnot, and people who can print PCBs, all that stuff.
They might have 2 3D printers. We don't know.
They might have 2. They might have several. I don't know. So the problem is, I guess the story goes they were in the process of changing manufacturing facilities, and then COVID hit, and they were not able to get their manufacturing facility spun back up. So whatever they had in stock at the time is what they're selling, and they're sold out of all of the US compatible thermostats. They have a couple of the EU kits left, but they don't have assembled thermostats. So if you live somewhere, I guess, where your heating setup is in the EU manner, you could go buy one of these if you want to. They're called Hestia Pis, Hestiapi. And I'll put a link to their site in the show notes then. They're not there just yet. But anyway, because they're sold out, I thought, I really want one of these things, and it's an open source project, so that should mean that everything I need is information that's accessible to me, right? And I've had mixed results. I don't want to talk down about the project. It feels like they've made assumptions because the project is old-ish. It was founded in like 2016 is when they started. That's as far back as their Git repo goes anyway. And
I didn't realize it was that old.
Right. So the thing is they've had several revisions of this thing, of their thermostat, and it seems like they've made some assumptions along the way that, people who are familiar with the project already know. So in the latest revision, they don't call out certain things, right? So they have a bill of materials on their site, right? Which should mean you can just go there, find the part numbers, and go order your parts. Well, they don't list part numbers. They don't list where to get them. They don't even suggest anything except for a handful of pieces. They just say, like one of them is listed like long pin for display. So what does that mean? right?
Long
Not a very
pin.
detailed bomb.
Yeah, right. The bomb is not detailed enough, right? It definitely gets you what you need if you know what you're looking for already, but I don't,
Okay.
right? I mean, this is one of the first, I shouldn't say first, this is one of the first times I've sourced my own parts for a project like this. I've bought kits and assembled them in the past, which is why I wasn't afraid to do that. But, so anyway, this brought to the forefront of my brain, this might be a fun little topic to talk about, right? So, this is, in my opinion, one of the failings of open source or community-driven projects, right? I basically had to go to their message forums, aka their community, and start asking a bunch of questions like, okay, where do I find this component? What component do I need for that? What does this mean, right? And some of their community already had some of this documented. I found a pretty detailed list of the components you need to build the EU version. The US version needs a whole different power supply, but otherwise is largely the same setup. But there was no information anywhere about where to get the power supply. And then when I found on their bomb, they actually had this like string, which turned out to be the part number and a link to the website, but you can't buy it from those people because I think they do custom manufacturing or something, or they expect you to buy in bulk, right? So it was more or less like a lead to find the part, but not a thing an average consumer can just go buy, right? So, anyway, I thought we'd have the full complement of co-hosts tonight, and then everyone dropped out, except for Uncle Marc.
Because I'm always with you, babe.
jscar was kind enough to hop in last minute because we were testing basically the Discord thing. We were testing it out with him.
Babe?
What?
Have I drank that much? Jeez.
I think
what
you
are you
did.
drinking tonight is the question.
This, my friend, is Buffalo Trace. The mighty buffalo riding over the plains.
Mighty
Yeah, I think I
Buffalo.
accidentally called Nate Babe, which people are gonna analyze that for years.
You might have done that. You might have done that.
I'll just be quiet now.
All right.
No one believes
We're
that.
in.
So,
He had a thought.
So, for anyone who doesn't know, jscar here is one of our coworkers, right? So all three of us on the show tonight work at Red Hat. So we may have skewed opinions about open source and how it works and how maybe it should work. So take that all with a grain of salt. I was hoping Jason would be here. And believe it or not, folks, you guys remember Dustin? Dustin was a co-host probably 2 years ago at this point, and then his life kind of got hectic enough because they had kids and, whatever, and he couldn't be on the show as much. He was going to be back tonight, and then that fell through, so...
Hope everything's okay.
Womp womp.
Especially with all the crazy weather that's going on, right?
Oh, yeah, right. So, yeah, he was going to be on to talk about a Windows topic, because believe it or not, we got some feedback from someone that was like, why don't you guys ever talk about Windows? I'm like, well, we kind of don't know Windows.
So one of the accelerators is also an Iron Sysadmin viewer is like Iron Sysadmin as a hand model. The stream view has 4 windows, U3, and a hand model.
Yes.
I think he must have missed your explanation.
Yeah, so I feel like I'm going to be describing that all night.
It's gonna be fantastic.
That's I'll call him AO because those are his initials.
Okay.
Yeah, but yo, AO. That's basically a new camera view Nate set up for some behind the scenes stuff.
We'll see if anybody
Because
likes
if
it.
you're a patron, we might give you the opportunity to hang out in the green room with us and then maybe
Yeah.
even jump in during a show.
Right.
We're evolving, man. Evolving.
This was all cooked up out of just like, I don't know, call it like a half awake dream that I had. Like, that would be awesome. Let's do some behind the scenes stuff. How am I going to do that? And then I cooked
So
up
you
this.
were in. So
There's-
you were in an account planning meeting or something.
Yeah,
just
right.
Totally
So-
not paying attention.
Those of you that
and
can
your
see
mind
my hand,
just wandered
right?
all over the place.
So up here next to my monitors, I
Yeah, keep
have
those hands in view.
I have a desk-mounted tripod and an Android phone up there. The Android phone is then joined to a Discord voice channel and Discord voice channel, which is, and then using Bluetooth to my mixer, which, by the way, would not be possible had the patrons not helped me buy this mixer. So awesome.
Yay!
Anyway, that makes all this possible, right? And then this is the cool part. I just figured this out this afternoon. I actually have a USB cable running from the phone to the computer, and this cool little tool I found called now I'm blanking on it. It's like screen copy, SCN's copy, wasn't it?
Yes,
SCNCPY.
Funkily, when I was looking at the person who went through and put it onto GitHub, apparently there was a challenge to make an even more challenging name to pronounce.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it can actually be pronounced.
There's
but we'll make
no
sure that we leave a
vowels.
link.
Yeah,
There's no
I'm just going to
vowels.
call it screen copy. It's basically a screen mirrorer for Android.
Mirrorer?
Mirrorer. So anyone who is watching that little stream can see down here. I'm going to drag it onto my main window here. There is this cool little window that I'm getting from over an Android debugging connection to the Android device, which shows me the screen, which is
really cool.
kind of cool. And then I just have a window capture bringing that into OBS, and that's how it gets into the stream. So
The great part about it is it's completely cross-platform too,
and open source.
and open source.
I wonder how their community is.
But is it documented?
That's the question.
That is the question, right?
So, anyway, I again, I don't want to talk poorly of this thermostat thing. Obviously, it's a neat project. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't even be bothering. So, I guess I thought we'd go down the road of, between Marc and jscar here. Do you have any examples of a project that had a similar similar pitfall, right? And do you have other examples maybe of projects that did not or were handled really, really splendidly, right? So that they were really easy to jump into. I can't think of names off the top of my head, but I can recall running into this several times over the years where, there's a thing that looks really cool and you go to use it and it's like, okay, here's this really arcane way to pull in the code, and then you need to compile it, but you really need to be a developer to learn how to compile it. You know what I mean?
What do you mean there are dependencies that you need to have installed? That wasn't in the documentation.
Right. That's the exact. That's my point.
So,
right?
so let's be honest. Documentation is the least sexy part of IT,
Absolutely.
right? We being the royal we sometimes do a terrible job of it, even when we're charging a lot of money for a product. And so it's not a surprise that someone who is doing an open source project for the love of it and is just tossing it up on their GitHub and is like, okay, here it is. Knock yourself out. Maybe they write a README file, whatever. But, having to do documentation, that's kind of like when you used to have to show your work in math class or when you were forced to diagram sentences. Like, maybe there's some twisted individuals who actually enjoy that, but most people don't. And so, in fact, the old joke about documentation sometimes was use the source, Luke. The idea that you want to understand how that works, just look at the source code, which is, of course, not realistic.
So, I mean, it is for folks who understand the source code. They can
Right,
actually
but they-
read whatever language it's written in.
Right. So what it comes down to, I think sometimes it comes down to starting with your why, which is a thing we say at Red Hat. The person who created the open source project, is it something that they want lots of people to be able to use, or do they not care? They're throwing it up there because maybe there's a subset of other nerds who would find it useful, but they don't feel like documenting it, so they're not going to bother. And so they legitimately don't care. Now, I remember in the early days of Linux, I had a great deal of respect for folk who would write the how-tos, how to in capital letters. They were the true heroes of the early Linux days, I think. Obviously, the people writing the code were heroes, but the people who understood how all this stuff worked and were able to write these guides so that if you had half a brain and a reading comprehension, you stood a chance of making it work yourself. Those were, I think, some of the real heroes of the open source movement. So let me share a link inside of the Discord chat. I just dropped it in general. One of the things I'm doing lately is I've been playing a lot of Flight Simulator 2020, and you can make mods for it. Well, this dude here, Eggman28, has made a hot air balloon model, which you can also substitute out different hot air balloons, including Lord Vader. However,
Nice.
if you watch my stream from, I think it was when I did the Washington, D.C. tour, I forget which night that was. Halfway through the stream, I tried to fly the Darth Vader balloon, and I couldn't take it off without crashing. It would like drag along the runway. The dude makes one little comment about triggered with the landing gear switch. I think maybe that's how you're supposed to use the burner. But he doesn't document at all how the hell to even fly the balloon. And it's not self-documenting inside of the simulator. Now, this is one of those things where you can download it and name your own price. I'm going to be honest, I didn't pay anything when I downloaded it because I wanted to try it out and see how it was. And quite frankly, since I couldn't even make the dang thing fly, I'm unlikely to go back and contribute, which is a shame because it would be kind of cool.
Yeah, right. So that guy put some effort into making the thing, and maybe it's awesome. But if you
And
can't
they
make
are
it
really
work,
cool.
right?
But he couldn't spare like a couple of instructions on, hey, here's some tips on actually flying the balloon. Like, I know I hit the landing gear switch, but so the landing gear switch is normally something that's a toggle that makes the landing gear go up and down. Well, do I have to hold it in for the flame to fire?
Right.
Right.
Or do you just hit it and turn it
when I was
off?
flying-
Yeah, right.
And when you crash, you got to reload the flight from the beginning. It's not an instantaneous recovery type of a thing. So if you want some high comedy, we'll talk about my Twitch stream later. Oh my God, I'm turning into a Twitch whore. But the Washington D.C. Stream shows me crashing multiple times. Like I can fly a high performance aircraft, but I can't operate a damn hot air balloon. But again, because it's not documented.
Right.
And so I've come across this issue across a couple different times. The most recent one was for our hackerspace going through and creating a capture the flag event. And there were a couple different pieces of software out there, but back when we were starting, we used the open source Facebook CTF. It was great. It was pretty. Had awesome graphics, and I'll drop a note of that into the show notes as well. It used to be really awesome and fairly easy to stand up, but it got over time that there just was not good documentation on keeping things up to date. And the prerequisites that you'd have to have installed, unless you had gone through and done this before. And in my case, I ended up going back to my own notes that I had saved and then pulled from that, and I got it working 1 year. I just tried to do it again earlier this year. This thing hasn't been maintained since 2018, and now when I'm getting ready to throw this in here, they've actually gone through and put this into the Facebook archive. As we're 6 months ago, that wasn't the case. It was still out there being developed, but nobody had touched it since 2018. So unless you had experience going through and building it, making sure that you had those other building elements to make sure it built correctly, you're SOL. But I think that also brings into an interesting point of when you're trying to contribute back to open source, you don't have to necessarily be a coder. This is where you could go take a project that you're interested in, like Yazrigal is another example, to where we've gone through and started using this for playing with mesh networking on IPv6 and found out the documentation was off, actually submitted for a pull request and saying, hey, here's an improvement to the documentation, and now other people can follow along. You don't have to be a coder to go through and improve an open source project, though, which I think is not talked about much.
Absolutely, right? So if you're really good at documenting technical things, or if you're really good at writing blog posts, for example, that's a great way to contribute, and that's a great point, right? And I hadn't even considered going that direction, but I mean, part of the idea of talking about this is, you know, if you are an open source community leader or contributor, what can you do better? And that's one of the things, right? Documentation. If you're a member of a community who just wants to contribute in some way, writing documentation is perfect. So one of the things that I intend to do is once I have finished this build, My plan is to write up how I did it and make it a blog post, maybe even make it a presentation for my local DEF CON group. But that's not going to help the project necessarily. But there is a thread where I'm asking all kinds of questions in their community, and what I'm hoping to do is write all of that up and publish it there in their community. And if they want to take that and do something with it, I guess that's up to them, right? Because I suppose I could try to commit it directly to their, make a request to their Git repository. But basically, parts list, where I bought them, how I put them together, right? Because their documentation is, I get the feeling they're based in China, right? Or maybe maybe not. I don't know. I can't tell. They don't say where they're based out of, but it feels that way. Some of the stuff is written, you know how you can identify someone who's not a native English speaker, and some of it is written in a way that makes me feel like they're of that region. But anyway, so most of their documentation focuses around the EU version of this thermostat, which I suppose must be what they're using in China. If they are in China, I don't know. Maybe I'm making some broad generalizations here that are getting me into trouble, but my point is they don't focus much. They say, yes, you can build a US version. They don't really focus on how, right? What are the differences? So that was why I started a thread on their forum. Like, look, I'm trying to build a US version. I can't find accurate information about how the heck to build it. Like, how do I even solder up the US power supply? Because its form factor is different than the one that appears to fit on their board. And it turns out their board has separate solder points for the US version. But they don't call that out anywhere.
Do they even know that, though? Like, maybe they don't realize that.
No, they do. They designed the board, right?
Oh, okay.
So they made
From
points.
scratch?
So basically there's points. So they're
just terrible people.
The EU version of the power supply is a surface mount board, right, where you plug it into the holes they've made, you solder it from the back, and it's in place. The US version has leads on it, 4 leads, right? So you can't just put them right into the pegs. You have to basically take them over to these other places that they've designed to connect the US version, which I guess if I knew that, I would have seen it on the board. Right, sure. But I didn't know that. I don't know what all these connections are for. I might have figured it out as I was building it. I don't know. Either? It is silk screened, right? But it doesn't say like US plug in here, right? Okay. And EU plug in there, right? Right.
It's got some code or some number or ladder.
I don't have the PCBs yet, but I do have the files. I could probably go back and look at them. But I'm going to say that looking at the pictures of the PCB, it was not obvious.
Okay.
Right. So maybe it will be once I have them in my hand, but.
Maybe.
So,
I just dropped a link in the show notes. Thinking about communities, Linux Laptop Net. This was one of the community sites that when I began my Linux journey in 1998, I've told the story in brief, but I had a ThinkPad 600 when I was doing desk side support at Merck. And I also had a compact desktop machine that I could keep Windows on. So I just nuked my work laptop and put Red Hat 5 on it. Not RHEL 5, Red Hat 5 in 1998. Yes. And then I ended up putting Slackware on it. That eventually became my preferred distribution for a long time because real men used Slackware, where you built things from source and used tarballs, RPMs for children.
This is my Red Hat 5 disc for anyone who's looking at the stream and wondering why I'm holding up an old Shadow Man CD. This is my Red Hat 5
There you go.
disc.
Hi, Shadow Man. We've missed you. You see Shadow Man's on my breast as well. It's an Insight shirt. What was my point? You distracted me, dude. Oh, no.
You were talking about
Linux Laptop. So Linux Laptop was the go-to site for folk who were trying to make Linux work on laptops because...
Yes, I remember this now. Okay.
Hardware support for certain things was terrible.
Yeah, and laptops, especially in that era, had very specific hardware because they were trying to make everything tiny and they were trying to make it all low power consumption. So desktop hardware versus laptop hardware was very different. It still is kind of, but like
it was always a crazy adventure to get Linux to run on a laptop. Nowadays, I mean, Hell, I boot my Lenovo with a Fedora USB stick, install from scratch, and it just works. Everything works.
Yep.
You're
Right?
all
Every
done.
single feature on the friggin' thing. Well, maybe there's some obscure things that don't work, but I have yet to stumble in anything I care about that doesn't work. And
Recently,
but so that Linux laptop community page, I'm pretty sure I contributed some stuff to it a handful of times when I was fussing with sound on Slackware and then the Ethernet card and stuff. So, but that to me, that's the community sharing information to help people get stuff working, which is, you know, sometimes that's what you have to do when the vendor either doesn't provide information
Mhm.
or doesn't care. And I would argue that IBM in 1998 didn't care about Linux users. I think that's a
So,
safe statement.
and I don't think it was just limited to IBM either, for what it's worth.
No, but
because
they're the one who built the hardware I was using. So no one really cared about Linux users in '98.
You are correct.
Not even in the enterprise.
And- Honestly, I think that was part of the attraction.
It was. Well,
That was
it was
that
all
was-
do-it-yourself making work.
Yeah, right. And it was different, right? It was against the grain, or against the common flow, which is something that drew a lot of us in. It drew me in, right? It wasn't Windows. Like, I didn't like Windows. I didn't like that it was expensive. I didn't like that it felt elite. Maybe not elite. It felt
exclusive, maybe.
exclusive,
Or-
maybe.
or
But
it
yeah,
yeah.
But
that was one of the
you know,
things that
You
drew
own
me
your
in.
hardware, right? So throw something else on there.
and I was thinking about this because we've thrown this topic around for a couple of days. Where consuming open source projects.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody on the planet consumes open source projects now, right?
Right.
Think about it. There's not a single thing that, if you take anything that's smarter than a table lamp, it probably has at least one open source project, possibly several,
Oh, yeah.
bundled inside of it.
The
now.
number of things that are using OpenSSL, for example, right, is ridiculous. Because you need SSL, or TLS, I suppose, to communicate safely on today's internet. And the number of things that just like, oh, here's an open source project that does that exact thing. I'm just going to go ahead and include that in my thing, right?
And how many embedded devices are just built on open source? So you're talking
Yeah.
about microcontrollers. I'm learning with my boys using the Raspberry Pi Pico with their new mini or microprocessor, and yeah, just learning exactly how many things have microprocessors in them is absolutely incredible. From your washer machine to your toaster to whatever else.
Yeah, yeah. So I actually am also, aside from the thermostat thing, there's another project that I'm tinkering with that I'll talk about in chat later. So stick with us until then, and you'll hear more about it. But I'll just say it's amazing what runs Linux.
Right? Absolutely.
All right. So unless you guys had other thoughts, I guess we could probably move along. I think that the point here
Move along,
is
move
right.
along.
If you're running an open source project that you expect people to be able to consume, documentation's not optional, and it doesn't have to be pretty, but it just has to be accurate, right? So
I would challenge
And
you on that, Nate, for what it's worth.
okay,
Because I would say that there are people who have strong points of going through and creating something but not documenting it. But there are people around that you could grab and you could say, hey, can you see if you can follow these rough steps that I've done? And if not, can you help make them better?
Right.
And basically getting down to the point where if you're somebody who can read, so if you're a high school graduate, can you follow these instructions, right?
yeah,
Or grab a Raspberry Pi book and can you make instructions like that to where somebody who's just new to the field can jump in then and then start working on it.
now that may be a lower bar than I'm thinking, because a lot of these projects do presuppose a certain amount of technical ability.
Mhm.
But you shouldn't have to be a programmer, right? You shouldn't
Right.
have to be, like, in the case of this project, I shouldn't have to be an electrical engineer, right? I should be able to be like a guy with some decent skills with a soldering iron should be able to put this thing together, and that's what I am, right? As far as like electronics are concerned, I have a decent base. I can't design one of these things on my own. I just don't have that amount of knowledge. But I can certainly follow someone else's directions, right?
And maybe
Oh,
at that
this
point,
is-
just recording it, right?
Here's
If they're not
something
gonna
really
write
sad.
documentation- Oh, what's that, Uncle Mark?
This
Is-
is an
is-
old friend that I just threw into the show notes. Look at the last update at this old friend at Linux How To's.
Linux How To /home.
Look at the date on the last update.
I'm opening it now. Latest news was back in 2007.
2007, yeah.
This site was an old friend.
LinuxHowTos.org. Yeah. I'm trying to remember. Was it How To Forge?
I mean, I think there's got to be one that was more current than this, but there
No,
was
no. The LDP, the Linux Documentation Project. You remember that?
okay. Linux documentation.
I spent
project.
so much
Let's-
time reading through docs on there when I was getting started.
Let's see what's kind of state that's in nowadays. The Linux documentation project. That is, let's see, latest updates. Let's see what the latest how-to update is.
2015.
2015 by Eric Raymond. Oh, I remember Eric Raymond.
Well, that's better than 2007, I suppose.
Right?
Yeah. We're going to link this guy too. But this is the type of thing that we're talking about, us old open source guys. Websites like this, these types of websites, this type of community involvement helped drive Linux, which Linux and open source, you can say what you want, they are effectively synonymous.
Yeah,
Right.
I would agree.
I agree with that. Well, I know I also going to the different forums directly for whatever distribution I was trying out at the time. So
Yeah, Usenet,
other-
right?
so I wasn't on Usenet.
Or web forms.
Oh, man.
It was more web forms. So for me, it was like the Ubuntu forums in the early days or the Fedora forums in the early days.
Right.
And then just finding that the information that you really wanted
Nope.
to or what was
Alt.Linux.
current.
That's
you're
where
right.
I learned crap. And now you got beat up if you asked dumb questions in there.
Oh, you got beat up if you asked any questions
You
sometimes.
got beat up if you asked good questions in there.
Yep.
And there's still some mailing lists today where people are downright assholes to people who ask a question. But
Yeah. And we actually had another show about that. In fact, Mark, it was one of the first ones you were on, Wizards and Peons. Remember
Yeah,
that one?
Wizards and Peons. I'm proud of that one.
Yeah,
I
that was a
thought that
good
was
show.
a great discussion.
We talked about that exactly, about how the wizards should not be beating on the peons. Instead, they should be trying to help the peons.
It comes down
In-
to that,
in
making
summary.
sure that you're teaching folks then, right? And
Yeah.
I think that mentality has slowly started to change, and it's just having to get us be out there more often and being willing to help other folks, right? Because there are a lot of people who are RTFM. Well, I can RTFM, but if I'm brand new to Vim, I can learn how to exit bash by bashing my keyboard, by shutting off my machine. If I RTFM'd and I see that there are all these letters and numbers combination, us as Linux admins and who have had experience with this are just going to say, oh, here's the quick shortcut. But if I hand this to my kid, or if I hand this to my grandmother, then that's not necessarily true. So yeah, you got to do that : WQ bang, or
Right.
exclamation mark, right?
Shift CZ, dude. Come on, Shift CZ.
See, and everybody's
know,
got their own opinion on how to do it.
It's hilarious, right? So the whole "how do you exit Vim" thing, that's like the age-old like can you make it as a sysadmin? Can you get out of
Right.
Vim? It's the joke,
Easiest
right?
way is Shift CZ.
I didn't know Shift CZ existed.
See,
It's so fast.
:Q has always been the way I've done it. I
Yeah,
didn't know
but then
there
you
was
gotta-
another
you
way.
gotta write first.
22 years I've been dealing, longer than that. 22 years I've been professionally dealing with Linux. Longer than that if you consider all the time I spend in my parents' basement trying to build a web server, right? I didn't know Shift ZZ exited Vim.
And it saves at the same time, so you don't have to do two commands.
Did not know.
there you go.
Did not know.
Yeah, yeah.
So
All
my
right.
point exactly. We've now got 3 different versions here, and if people just say RTFM,
And mine is right.
Yeah.
Of course, Marx is right. Marx is right. At least we don't have any Emacs users.
Oh, thank God.
Oh, ooh, yeah.
Your soul is
Bunch
lost
of
at that point.
heretics.
All right, so I think we've covered the topic well enough. Any final thoughts on this before we go to a transition?
Good luck figuring your project out, and maybe add to the documentation.
Yeah, well, I mean that's kind of my hope. Maybe I'll look into how to commit my stuff back to their proper documentation and not just their message forum, because that seems to be what everyone else did. They got their thing working and then they walked away. You know.
Well, if Google can find it, like if it's in a post on a forum, that's probably good enough for a lot of people.
That's how I found most of my stuff. But being like, I feel like their documentation should be the place, like, should be the source of truth.
Hey, you know,
and
bud,
it's not.
triple A game title, Flight Simulator. Like I said, I've been playing that lately. I've got a whole bunch of bookmarks of really weird ass issues that can crop up and how to fix them, like Teredo, the Teredo adapter, which is used for the Xbox networking.
Mm-hmm.
Like crazy level stuff.
Mm.
Yeah. I have to keep a control panel open so it streams data properly. I can't believe that like kids or non-technical people, like, how are they dealing with this type of crap?
And this is Microsoft.
And let's not talk about the complexity of of starting from a blank desktop to running with VR and all the other support stuff.
Right. Crazy stuff.
And it's not well documented. Like, you buy a game nowadays, there's no friggin' manual. And there's barely a help file.
Yeah, no, you get a
They're
digital,
like, yeah, you just go.
You get a digital download, and they hope that they made the intro screen easy enough for you to learn.
The jet, like, there's some flying lessons for the Cessna. The jet, there's taking off and landing, and it barely tells you anything. There's no documentation on how all the avionics and shit works. You got to figure that out either by reading like real documentation or watching YouTube videos of people who know how to fly a 747.
Jeez, it's crazy stuff.
So I think I've also seen this still happening, especially when it comes to like Raspberry Pi hats. There are some amazing pieces of hardware that you can slap on top of that Pi, but their documentation, or when you're going back to their GitHub, doing a pull request is great, because we've now got that, versus in the earlier days, I don't think we necessarily had that.
No, you didn't have version control. You didn't have an easy way to collaborate on stuff like that.
No, it was all in like CVS.
The author would have to take it. The author would have to take your advice and then incorporate it by hand.
So we're more enabled to help fix
the
documentation now than any other time.
Absolutely,
So
community around source code is a much easier thing now than it used to be. There you go again. All right, so while Mark dies, we're going to go to a short break. Hopefully he can clear his throat. And then we'll be back. I don't think it'll be a terribly long one tonight, folks, so don't go too far. And let me... Geez, you're dying over there.
Yeah, are you going to pause the recording? Should I stop the timer? Can you pause the recording?
No. So
we got an hour and 13 minutes left until we all die.
All right, folks.
That's how much life we have left because Nate cheaped out.
We'll be back. We'll be back soon. Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/ironsysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/ironsysadmin. And thank you. I figure at the very
Actually,
least,
do want more bourbon.
I figure at the very least, the music will hopefully draw people back in if they're at the live stream and they've gone off to Twitter
There's
World or
one
something.
person watching on Twitch.
Yeah, well, that's because the
I don't
only
know if
other
there's any
person
on the YouTube.
That's because the other person that usually watches is here.
We still got Trooper-ish in YouTube chat that I'm watching as well.
Yep.
And
I'm just gonna let everyone
was
know.
watching at some point, but it's good. We're not about the live views because we're a podcast, right?
Indeed, we're a podcast. I like them both, though. Honestly, I would love it if we had more live views, just because I love that interaction. It's great stuff.
You're that guys. He's judging you.
Totally judging everybody that does not watch live. You're all terrible
Totally.
people.
Yeah, you definitely don't want me having more bourbon. I'm just throwing that out
Right. I have more three philosophers here. It will be drank
have
by the
more-
end of the show.
I've got more stevia.
You have more stevia. My gosh, I'm sorry. I really am. I'm sorry for you.
It's all good. Everything's fine. This is fine.
This is fine. All right, so
Dog drinks
announcements.
coffee, you know.
We don't have much in the way of announcements other than the normal stuff. Our usual Patreon update. We're still making the usual amount, 86 a month, though I think that's changed, even though I haven't updated it. I'm sorry, folks. But our patrons are rootisgod, Bruce, Robert, Matt, David, Solemn, Trooper-ish, Linux Sys 666, gimpyb. I tell you, that is hard to say. Linux Sys 666. Can you take the sixes off, or maybe the sys in the, I don't know, something.
Let
gimpyb,
it go.
Ryan.
Let it go.
Marc with a K, DeMentor, our good friend from PowerShell on Linux, John the nice guy, Marc with a C, Julius, Andi, Jay, Charles, and our old friend 22532.
2.
I once looked up what that meant.
Represent.
I forget now. But anyway. Right. So for patrons, if you've not seen this, if you go to Patreon, I made a post and I'm looking for topic ideas. DeMentor was nice enough to give us a couple ideas, but if you're a patron and you want to give us some ideas for things you want us to cover on the show, feel free to go look up that post and respond to us. I'll eventually open that up to folks who are not patrons as well, but I thought I'd give them the first crack. So he gave us a couple ideas, 2 already, in fact, and we'd love to hear more. So, whatever folks want to hear us talk about, we'd love some inspiration there. Not that we're running out of ideas, but maybe we are. I think we're running out of ideas.
I was gonna say, I think maybe hacker karaoke or I
Yeah.
don't know.
Hacker karaoke.
For karaoke.
No, right. So we did that episode where we critiqued our first episode. Maybe we should watch the movie Hackers and MST3K.
Oh dear lord. Oh man.
Dude, I'm in. That would be
that-
amazing.
I think
Hands
Because remember,
I think we get in
instead of
trouble over
playing
that.
D&D that one time, we watched that terrible fantasy movie.
yeah, The Gamers, Darkness Rising. Great movie.
Are we allowed to watch Hackers and comment on it? I mean, would we get a copyright strike?
Probably. I have no idea. Am I going to have to look into this?
So the other option is, instead of doing it on Twitch, you would do it live with your Discord with
Yep.
maybe your patrons,
Yep.
and then at that point you're just streaming it. Everybody has the sync up time, and then you can be chatting live with each other.
Which is exactly how we did the other movie. I played it from my Plex server, we streamed it through Discord, and we had a good time.
Could we
you go.
could we just do an audio track for the download for people to listen if they wanted to?
That would be hilarious.
I don't know. I'm just saying.
That'd be
Maybe
great.
so.
I mean,
It's
it
a very
has to
very
sound
special iron sysadmin that would
Look,
not
I've-
be recorded.
I've seen that movie so many times I can practically recite it. But anyway. Right. So if you want to support the show via Patreon, go ahead and do that. If not, if you'd like to actually get merch, which also helps the show, you can do that at the moment anyway via Teespring. Though Patreon has an offering that I'm exploring. I guess they offer merch now, so I'm going to see what we can do from that perspective. I don't know if it's any more cost effective or not, but we'll see about that.
You're trying to sound like a teenage K-pop fan calling it merch.
Merch.
Get all the merch.
Hey,
I-
it's that or swag.
I
Man.
could-
Either way works.
I could call it merchandising.
Merchandising.
Yogurt. Yogurt.
No, my daughter
you.
and her friends are all into K-pop, like they're
Yeah.
college girls, and they're always going
Merch
on
is
about
not-
the merch.
Merch is not tied to K-pop. It's just a common word the young people use nowadays.
This is true.
A lot of it's tied to
Hey,
K-pop.
is it the BTS for you, Uncle Marc?
Oh, yeah. Ugh.
Okay, all right. My little sister is very much into that, and when that pack came to VR Beat Saber, and then my younger boys were starting to go through and slice things up, and they knew at least the names of the songs. Can't sing them, but they know the names of the song. She just started wigging out, saying, "You know it," and then it was all over.
I have
Then it
my
was done.
my older daughter is interested in infected mushrooms, so I feel like I've done something right as a parent.
That's a win.
That
is a win.
She's never listened to K-pop, as far as I know.
Well, keep her away from it.
All right, and
Nothing good comes of it.
I guess one more announcement before the end of February, since we're not going to have. Well, I guess this would have been our last show for February anyway. The Slack channel. I intend to lock that down probably at the end of February. We're moving to Discord, so come on over to Discord if and you can hear Mark complain about how I say Discord. I'm just going to try to say it as many ways as I can throughout the rest of the show. What Windows? What did you just do to me? It just minimized everything. What did it do?
Did you do
Don't
a
you
wiggle,
minimize
wiggle?
my pain, Windows?
My God, like the stream is now screwed up because it minimized everything. Where did my?
They can still sound that. They can still hear.
They
the
can
sound
still
of our
hear
voices,
us.
though.
They can still hear us. Where did my?
What the hell am I? Am I a road?
There.
Is that what you think of
Sure.
me? Oh, okay.
Feedback.
There we go.
My God. Freaking Windows.
If only you were running it on Linux. Oof.
I was, yeah, right. I don't know what I did. I was just moving a window, and all of a sudden everything minimized. What you would think that I don't know anything about these computer things. Anyway, where was I? Oh, Discord. We're going to Discord. There's a link. Now I have to look and make sure, because initially I forgot, or I didn't realize that Discord links do expire unless you tell them not to, which is the exact problem that I had with Slack. But at least you can turn it off with Discord. So, did I say it wrong that time, Mark?
Discord.
I don't even realize.
You get it right about one
don't-
time in 10.
I don't know.
It's Discord.
Discord.
The stress is on the first
Dis-
syllable.
Discord?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Discord.
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 Discord. I'm
Like
gonna have
chaos
to
in Discord.
practice at night saying
You will.
Discord in the way.
The problem is you're not from Jersey. If you're from Jersey, it would be perfect.
Maybe that's the problem. It's that people from Jersey are intolerant assholes.
Well, that too.
Just going straight for it. Well done.
Right, boom. And we're proud. We're proud of being intolerant assholes. That's right.
Man.
And we're all in the mafia.
I was gonna say. I'm just gonna say I'm from the West Coast. Hi guys. You just keep that stuff over there on the East Coast problems.
Now you guys just want to take away our fossil fuels.
We want to take away everything. Let's
Yeah.
just be frank. You
It
don't
all
get
costs
anything here in
the
California.
number of products I've received in the mail that have a warning on them that say that in California it might cause cancer.
Then just don't go to freaking California. Then
Right,
you'll be
I-
fine.
Go to Nevada, you're fine. Or Arizona. If you want another desert, it's great.
Great. Anyway, right. So if you're still in Slack and have not seen the notices that it's going to go away, you should get over to Discord. If you're not in Slack and you want to join our community, I will make sure I have the proper link in our show notes so that you can do that, or you can just go to
And Andy's in my head. Andy's in my head because he's saying now we East Coast versus West Coast, just like the rappers. Because that's what I always think, East Coast versus West Coast rappers.
That's exactly what? No, okay, I guess.
Yeah.
Sorry. So there's no new reviews this time around, which is a shame, folks. Go ahead and review things. Let us know. And if you think we're missing your review, let us know. We're happy to read it on the air. I've been trying to read all the positive and negative reviews, even though we've only had that one. Sorry, Mark.
Quiet. Quiet.
Down and back.
All right, and that closes the announcements, I think. Yeah, I think that's all the announcements I had. That's all the ones that ended up in the show notes, so that's good. That's good. So, chat, right. So, I've got something, let me, for folks that are on the live stream are going to appreciate this more than folks that are listening audio only. So, just give me 1 second here.
Don't you tell them how they feel.
So,
You're not their real dad.
my gosh. Mark's in rare form tonight, guys.
I was gonna say, I think he needed another bourbon.
So,
for sure.
Like,
No, and like I said, it was on this hellish call today, later in the day. Oh, it was awful.
Mark's a little
It's
punchy.
after hours. It's
So-
after hours. Woosah.
In my camera, you guys should hopefully be able to see that I'm holding up. I don't know. Can you guys see this on the call? If I hold it over here, does that work better? I don't know.
Yeah, we can see it.
So it's a smart doorbell, right? Video
Ding dong.
doorbell V5, right? This thing was given to me as a Christmas gift, right? And Um,
But it's still in the box.
well, right. So I knew nothing about the company that made it. It's just, a quote unquote smart doorbell. It's battery operated and it has a smartphone app, right?
Okay.
And nowhere on it does it tell you what company made it. Nowhere on it does it tell you anything about just about anything, right? There's not even
Is this going to be like a Stephen King story?
Yeah,
it's
right.
Like some haunted doorbell that...
It kind of is, right? So there's not even like a part number or like a model number or anything on the thing. But I out of curiosity, I set up their smartphone app. It's called Toosee, Toosee, right? So I mean, already it's got a weird name. It's not marked. I'm like, this thing came from China. It has to have come from China. It was bought at like Walmart or something, right? So it's not like it was bought on AliExpress or something where it obviously came from China, right? So I start doing some research on the thing, like what is this thing, and how do I make it work? Because even the instructions that came with it are really vague. So there's accessories you can buy for it, like an indoor chime, right? Like a normal standard doorbell where you push the button and it rings a chime, or you can just use it with the app. The app only works on one smartphone. You can't share it with your family, which is kind of the way I would want a smart doorbell to work if it doesn't have an indoor chime, right? It also has a video camera on it so that when someone hits the doorbell, you can see who's there, or you can get a picture of who rang the doorbell, right? And it has an intercom, so you can, through your smartphone app, you can talk to the person that's outside and say oh, go ahead and come on in or whatever, right? Or, please go away, whatever. But I never quite trusted it, and I didn't like the app. Right? The app is it's weird, right? I don't like the app. Feels sketchy to me, and the functionality, while it's there, isn't what I need, right?
Okay.
So I decided I want to find out if this thing will work with Home Assistant. Because, I'm tinkering with Home Assistant already, and this seems like, it's a smart doorbell, right? Has somebody figured this thing out already? And I found a thread on the Home Assistant forums, basically talking about, I have this doorbell, has anyone made it work? And nobody has. Okay. So I started doing things like packet captures to try to figure out what is this thing, how is it talking to my smartphone?
Nice. Yes.
And I found pretty much nothing. There's really no direct communication between the doorbell and my smartphone based on packet captures. And if anybody's curious about how you get a packet capture from this kind of thing, it wasn't straightforward. I basically had to set up a Wi-Fi access point and run the packet capture on the AP. And then I was able to get join my phone and the doorbell to that AP. And then I was able to get the packet capture through there. So it turns out it's talking to an IP in China, which I don't know what exactly that does.
Okay.
And
that's the evil organization that's trying to kidnap your family.
And two other IPs that appear to be on AWS.
Okay.
Which makes sense, right? So this thing advertises that you can be anywhere in the world and receive your doorbell notification and see the camera, right? So obviously it has to be using a cloud provider. It can't do that over your Wi-Fi network, because if you're not home, not on your Wi-Fi network, it doesn't work. So I get why it's talking to an external cloud provider. The fact that it has a constant connection open to an IP in China makes me a little concerned. So I was talking to some folks in my DEF CON group, and I've ended up completely disassembling the doorbell.
Nice.
And I found that on the board, you see how I have this little lead running off of it? There's a serial port.
Nice.
With the serial port and this cool little USB adapter, which I can link in the show notes, I can literally get a COM port open and get a terminal on the freaking doorbell.
Nice.
It runs Linux.
Awesome. Of course it runs Linux. Nice.
It runs a Huawei build of Linux called LightOS.
Oh.
Which I have not been able to find a ton of information about online. I did find an actual documentation site about LightOS, which is unfortunately a little vague. And even the folks in the DEF CON group...
goes back to our original topic.
Yeah, right, exactly. But I mean, this is you could almost call it a proprietary Linux, even though it is...
Embed it.
Right, it's embedded Linux.
Right,
I guess
it's
you call it
embedded,
embedded Linux. And the stuff that runs on top of it is completely masked for me. I can't actually get it to do anything. But this is a project that I've undertaken. I'm trying to figure out how do I get... So basically, while the thing is booting, I can see some configuration files and whatnot, but they're quickly hidden from me.
Right.
Right? So that even on
Nothing to
this...
see here.
Like on this COM port that nobody should ever be linked to, they have hidden things from me. That makes me worry extra.
Don't look.
Like, how many people are gonna open up the doorbell and solder onto the board a COM port with an emulator attached to it?
Right.
So anyway, that's a thing that I'm working on. That's as far as I've gotten so far. I was able to get a terminal on the thing.
We just use a ring because we know that those assholes
Yeah,
are
right.
spying on
You
us
already know that
anyway.
Amazon's looking at that one, right?
So, like, we don't, whatever. Hey, Mr. Bezos, how you
Yeah.
doing?
So I mean, at this point, I'm not necessarily opposed to getting a different doorbell, but this one was given to me, right? I had 0 smart doorbells, and now
So
I have
who gave
1
it to
smart
you?
doorbell. It was
Random
What's the
relative?
back door?
yeah, pretty much random relative.
It's
really-
there's a Stephen King story in there, dude.
Yeah, really.
There's such a Stephen King story in
She
there.
she had no idea what she was buying. She's just like, oh, a smart doorbell. It's under $100. This is a great
Right.
Christmas gift, right? So she gave one to me. She gave one to her own son. I think both of her sons, to be honest. And yeah, now
So what she did is she borrowed money from the Yakuza. I know they're Japanese, not Chinese. And then when she couldn't pay him back, the Yakuza guy's like, you must give these out to various important people to you.
yeah.
And
So
we shall then monitor them.
that's exactly
to
it.
extract.
Except for this guy that's hooked up to the serial port on his.
So
Well,
the other
there's
question
gonna
is,
be ninjas coming after you now.
Yeah,
man.
right. You
Ninjas.
opened the box. Ah!
Don't
so
mess with the
along
Yakuza.
this, I'm curious to see if you're gonna deep dive into this and like dumping the firmware on the board.
That's kind of my goal. My goal is to
Okay.
figure out how to dump the firmware.
Okay.
Mainly, like my ultimate goal is to put different firmware on it that I can control. And I basically want a local smart doorbell that'll talk to
Right.
that'll just talk to Home Assistant, right? If
Okay.
I can figure that out, I'll be happy, right? But the problem is there's not an easy way to get that done from what I've been able to tell. And I really wish we could have an in-person DEF CON 610 meetup, because I guarantee if I took this thing to a meetup, we would make progress on it. Because, you know, I'm talking to a buddy on the DEF CON 610 group through Discord. Did I say it right that time? Discord.
But don't worry about it.
Discard. I'm gonna call it Discard.
We don't have much
and
time
then-
left. We're gonna have to deal with your mispronunciations, your Jim Thorpeisms.
We're running out.
So, you know, if I'm like talking with him through Discord, and I guarantee there's like if he had his hands on the thing, he would hopefully be able to figure some of this out. But anyway,
So you might be able to check out Larry Pesci from that other site that you and I both talk about. I just posted it into the Discord. The Security Weekly folks. Since he used to do things for Sans, he does a lot of the embedded stuff, including free videos on how to dump that. Otherwise, a couple tools like the JTagulator. This is a specially made one from DEF CON.
Tagulator!
the J-tagulator. There's a J in there.
JTagulator. Yep.
It's my J-Tagulator!
So at that point, you
Rare
could go
form,
through
folks.
Platypus?
Rare form.
Hurry the platypus!
and I don't even get that reference.
Phineas and
Oh.
Ferb! How old are your
yeah,
kids?
Never. I was
You
gonna
don't-
say they're.
You don't know Phineas and Ferb? My
I
God.
don't know Phineas and Ferb. Very sheltered. Very.
Do you have
sheltered.
Disney Plus?
Apparently. You
I
can go
do
back
have
and
the
watch
Plus.
it.
If you have Disney Plus, Phineas and Ferb is totally wholesome. It's an awesome
Okay.
cartoon, and it doesn't insult your intelligence.
No,
you
in
would
fact,
love it.
Kind of the opposite.
It would
It's
be right.
great. It
would
really
be
is
right
great.
in your swim lane. You would love it.
So, between or in that same swim lane, if we're going there, gotta love Gravity Falls though. That's what got my boys into doing crypto and then starting to decode things.
That
and
I've never
books with
watched.
That.
I've
Dude,
heard of
it's
it. I've never
worth
seen it.
It's as an adult and for kids, it's fantastic. Second season gets a little bit existential, but as long as you're watching it with
It's
your
an
kids,
existential
you're
kids
fine.
show.
It,
I-
it, You'll understand when you watch it, but I don't want to spoil anything. It's totally worth it. Completely.
All
Well,
right, I'll have to
I
check it
challenge you to check out Phineas and Ferb with your boys. I think
Absolutely.
I
you'll
will
enjoy
definitely
it.
check it out.
Absolutely, it's sometimes
And
it's
again,
it's a little weird, but it is definitely not a bad show, and it is
it's
a Disney show,
never-
right? So
Yeah, it's never inappropriate.
yeah,
Okay. Cool deal.
good stuff.
I will definitely. It's on my to-do list now.
So yeah, the other thing I had in chat was basically the thing we talked about in the in the main topic, which is this doorbell I'm trying to build. I have all the parts ordered. I have even the PCBs are ordered. I'm just waiting for them to come here, and then, like I said, I'm gonna, if it works. That's a big if. If it works,
Right.
I'm definitely gonna write this thing up and maybe do a presentation of it for, pretty much anyone who will listen. So, all right,
That's
Marc.
awesome.
I get this weird. It's like in the back of my head that you're doing some kind of a streaming thing. I don't know where I heard this
Fly
before.
me to the moon, let me dance among the stars.
My
Yeah,
gosh.
so I forget what actually started it, but I got this idea in my head that I was going to start. Oh no, I know what happened. One of our mutual coworkers goes by the name of Ajax Cat. I don't know if that tells you anything, but you know him on our team.
I don't know if I do. Oh,
yeah,
really?
well,
Okay.
yeah.
I know him by a different name.
Yeah.
Okay.
He plays a lot of Elder Scrolls Online, and he has streamed that in the past. And we've also streamed, like, when I first got Fallout 4 on the PS4, I streamed it right to YouTube a few times, and so he's like, you should stream some of the Flight Simulator stuff, and I'm like, I wonder if that would work. So I pulled down what the heck? What do I use? It's the Streamlabs OBS. It's the
Yep.
one specifically for the streaming.
Yep. Which
Dusted
is
off my Twitch channel.
the one we had to panic switch to last time we went live.
Yeah.
OBS, which luckily I had handy. Anyway.
And so I've actually got. I'm gonna throw this in the Discord chat because I don't know if it was in general at all. But there's my Twitch channel.
Nice.
And then what I do so far, I've saved all of the flights, but I also link to the YouTube where I'm gonna save
tubes.
streams that are worthy. Yeah.
Nice.
But so if your thing, like if you think you'd be into listening to an old dude babble for a while while he flies pretend airplanes, you're my target audience.
That's great. So I don't know. Little known fact. I don't think I've ever said this on the show. jscar, you've heard me because of the podcasting club thing that we're both involved in. When I was figuring out streaming for Iron Sysadmin, when we switched away from Google Hangouts or Google Hangouts Meet or whatever they called that, Hangouts on Air. When we were trying to figure out how to migrate away from that when it was going away, the way I figured out streaming through OBS was I did a little bit of game streaming on the same Twitch channel that we now broadcast this on. So
Nice.
it's a great way to get your hands on streaming and figure out how this works. A great way to figure out OBS. A great way to just do lots of things, right? In a very low stakes way, right? So the thing was, I didn't care if a bunch of gamers saw me screwing up while I'm playing a video game,
Right.
because to be
No,
honest, I'm not
It's very ephemeral.
exceptionally great at video games to begin with, so
here.
they're gonna see me screwing up anyway. So I mean, I did pick a game that I am good at, which happens to be a poster on my wall. I don't know if you can see the. I know it's tiny in the stream, but that's Doom. That's the original Doom 1. That's the poster from
Nice.
that. Signed by all the creators too.
Oh, that's cool.
It's pretty cool. That's why it's in a frame and not just tucked away somewhere. But anyway, what was I saying? So like I didn't want to screw up Iron Sysadmin, but I figured screwing up game streaming was fine with me. So that's how I figured that out. I figured out OBS. But cool.
Yeah. And so it's been fun. I got a couple. I think I've got like a half a dozen or so right now, including the second one I did. I called behind the scenes, where I essentially showed the viewers all the steps from blank desktop to streaming in full VR with all the support, just sort of like a behind the scenes type of a thing.
That's cool.
And that was
Nice.
kind of fun to do. Yeah.
Kind of like that
I've had
thing we're
I've had
talking
people
about
like-
doing for patrons on
Yeah.
Discord.
But I've had people
Plug,
ask
plug,
me, Are you a professional pilot? I'm like, no, in fact, don't take flying advice from me. I'm just an enthusiast.
I know nothing
'Cause I'll,
about
like-
flying things. I can fly fake airplanes.
Because I'll just like hold forth on a particular gauge. You know, like
Right.
I'm not there'll be times when I haven't even started the engine on the aircraft and I'm 20 minutes in because I'm talking about something we're going to do or explaining something. It's I don't know. I check it out. Maybe it's cool. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I did one yesterday. I call it Rockets and Mice. Took off in an airfield just south of Cape Kennedy. Flew over Kennedy Space Center. There's a SpaceX rocket on the pad. And then I went west, flew over Orlando International, and then buzzed a couple of the Disney parks.
Nice.
So,
Of
so
course
yeah,
you did.
check that out.
Did you sing as you
course I
did
did.
it? Or is
You
the
know you did.
singing only for Iron Sysadmin?
I might have done like a line or two, but so this is something I found out. I have a Pandora station I call Drunken Pirate Radio,
Mhm.
and if you feed Pandora the keywords Drunken Pirate or Drunken Sailor Radio, sorry, Drunken Sailor, you will get a station filled with Irish drinking songs and sea shanties, and you won't hear a single regular non-Irish or English accented voice. It's amazing. So I was playing that the other day during one of the longer flights, and I'm like, I
Kinda
had
like
some
an in-flight
viewers.
movie, right?
Yeah, I had some viewers who were like, "Yeah, I don't know if that's going to be a problem. Like, there might be copyright issues." And so when I posted that first video and I went to YouTube, they said this is not a copyright strike. You can't monetize this video, and it listed all the songs that were in violation. And what they basically said is any ad revenue is going to go right to those creators. And I'm like, oh, well,
That's okay.
I don't care because
Right.
I'm not doing this to make money anyway. I don't want this to be an obligation, right? I'm doing this for funsies. So you're telling me that me playing this, those guys who write the songs that I find amusing to listen to are going to get a penny or two, maybe? Yeah, that's a win-win in my book.
Sure.
you know?
Absolutely.
I think it's
So-
amazing, and obviously with the involvement that I have with YouTube, I've seen this myself. I think it's amazing that they're able to identify those songs. I mean, obviously they're Google.
Scary.
Right? Yeah, scary,
In
right?
some ways, but we'll take amazingly scary for 1,000.
Amazingly
Alex.
scary
Yeah.
is probably the
Right.
right way to go.
So I'm on the other side of the house when it comes to that, to where I help my church stream, and we're doing hymns, right? Or we're doing a live band up on stage,
Uh-huh.
and they're doing it live. We can stream to Twitch. It's fine. If you try to stream to YouTube, they're like, nope. If you try to just do
Well-
the recording afterwards, nope. So there are other ways to go through and do that with additional licensing with the
Yeah.
CCI numbers and such. But it was interesting to start having that happen when COVID started rolling in.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy with the.
Oh no!
The tubes.
When I was years ago, when I helped install at a church I was going to, I helped install the system with the slides. You know, before that, it was you had the words printed out on clear plastic things, and someone used an overhead projector.
Yes.
I brought him
Yes.
into the 20th century with the LCD projector and the computer, but I had to explain to them we need to actually like put the CC whatever the heck code on the bottom of the lyrics, or else we could get in trouble.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. And we have that on our slides. That's the funny thing. But apparently, there's also an additional streaming one that you could go through and do, and it kicks it up like by another like $5,000 or so. So it goes pretty exponentially high.
Dang.
So we just make it simple and keep it. Just do the sermon when it comes to the message that gets shared off to YouTube. So we got some little bit of video editing to chop up.
That's fun.
Yeah.
You need to find Creative Commons licensed hymns. Is all there is to it.
Well,
You
a
know
lot
what?
of them, the older ones should be.
That's
Yeah,
a
right.
good point, right?
Right. It's like these are
Crazy
hymns,
thing.
right? They're written 200 years
No.
ago.
No, it's not
Yeah.
the hymns that are a problem. It's like the modern stuff, like the Hillsong things and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
jscar, I see you have something in the chat too. What are you building?
Yeah. So I think you guys have talked about this in the past, but I actually ended up building the Pi KVM. My dad ended up having an issue with his CNC machine. Have been helping him off and on throughout the years because he's a cabinet maker, right? So
That's cool.
unfortunately, it's cool. I've had a lot of fun with it. I did 10 years in that field before I came to the
No,
IT,
I think
which
it's
was
cool that
always-
your dad has a CNC machine. Is what I'm saying. That's
well,
awesome.
right? It's massive, right? So it's a 4
It's like-
foot wide.
It's like
by
the
12
tough
foot
guy's
long.
3D printer.
Yeah.
Right? It's legit. So being able to cut things out
Too
on that
legit
are-
to quit.
right?
Now he's doing MC Hammer.
Problem
Damn
is
straight.
that it's still running XP and there is no upgrade path.
Say my name.
And so long story short, there are issues with it. And
I'll say.
well, I don't want to bore you with over 2 weeks and 80 hours of out of work time working on this thing because
gosh.
it was not fun. But I was able to then build and utilize this project. So the Pi KVM is this little daughter board that you can plug into the camera module of your Pi and then load up a special operating system to where anything that you plug into this HDMI will then show up in the OS, which you're able to log on via
Oh.
network connection.
That's cool.
So it's really cool. So you have to plug in the network cable.
I'm
but-
just sorry. My brain just went to mounting a Raspberry Pi with a camera so it can see the actual screen.
right, right,
Same idea,
Thankfully
but more
not-
direct.
right. So in this case, one of the things that you do have to do, and you can do this either on the Raspberry Pi 4, which is a lot more powerful, and you can get like full like 30 frames per second, so it's legit. Versus the Raspberry Pi Zero, you get like 5 or 6. So you can do it there, which is
For a
fine.
third of the price.
So this guy alone is $30.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, for a third of the price, sure. It depends on what you're trying to do.
Right. I mean
Yeah.
right. So the Pi Zero versus the Pi 4 is what I'm getting at. The Pi Zero you can get as low as like $10 or $15.
Yep.
Whereas
yep,
the Pi
10
4
bucks.
is closer to 35, 40.
Exactly.
Right.
So I'm running the 1 gigabyte model. So if you can find them anymore, because I think they may be discontinued because they found out, hey, everybody wants more RAM, so let's just continue making the more RAM versus the 1 gig version.
Yeah.
So it costs you the same to pick up a 1 gig versus a 2 gig. So this is an older Raspberry Pi 4. The more important part was when you're plugging things in with the host port. So this will do your power to your Pi, but it's also can act as a host port. So then this can control something else. So then a network diagram cutting up later, grab 2 cables, one with USB-C on one end, and then just a regular power cable on the other end. But then you splice in another cable to have just data go across. And this becomes your keyboard and mouse input that you plug into the computer that you want to work on. So you plug in the HDMI, you plug in the USB, and you've got a networked KVM off of a Raspberry Pi.
That's pretty cool.
It worked out, except you also need an additional cable, which is, for his case, since it's an older machine, it had to be a VGA, and it had to be a VGA to HDMI. And my little town doesn't have any of those. I haven't had need for one of those. I have the opposite. So I ordered it from Amazon. Thankfully, we got the thing fixed in another way. But building the project didn't take that long. I'm still waiting on that part because it's been delayed 2 or 3 times from Amazon.
Yeah, that's
So-
a shame.
Yeah, but hey, you throw that in the bag, and then at that point in time, anytime in the future, you know you have that cable, so you can go pull it out. So yeah,
Yep.
I thought that was pretty neat. There's a couple of projects out there with it, but the Pi KVM is the one that I worked with and was pretty happy with it.
That's a pretty cool little project. I mean,
Word,
just
indeed.
the concept, right? So I mean, KVMs are not cheap,
No.
even in today's standards, right? Even like consumer grade KVMs cost you, a decent amount of money. And as like I have an older KVM, but it's all PS2, right? There's
Right.
PS2 and USB, and it's like now I have to replace that whole thing if I want to actually use KVM with it. So yeah, right, and it's not a cheap endeavor. So that's cool.
A network KVM to where usually those cost like starting at $600.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So this one, if I remember correctly, had a network component, but I never used it.
Got it.
Just because it was just stuff in my basement, right? I didn't need a network component to it, but
absolutely.
But yeah, that's
So
pretty
if you're
cool.
interested in building up your own, it's fairly inexpensive to get the parts, or you can get a hat that you can actually control a full computer, including like power cycle. So you're basically making an IPMI or the iDRAC if you're more into the Dell servers, and then just plug this into a tower, which is kind of cool. So then you have that functionality in the future.
So basically, you're taking a system that doesn't have something like an iDRAC or an IPMI device, and I guess you're not getting all the functionality, but some of it, right? I mean, the remote KVM, things like that. That's valuable, right? Especially on systems that maybe a system that you're supporting for someone that's. I assume that's why you want to do this for your dad's.
That's what I did it for my dad, so then
CNC,
I can plug
right?
it in. Yep, for the CNC machine.
Yeah.
So got the thing taken care of, but now I've got it in my toolbox to where any point in time, theoretically, I could just put this into a Pelican case, ship it to a relative, and since I've got it connecting back to my personal VPN, then I can remote into it and help them fix it as long as they have internet connectivity and power.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. So that's what I've been doing.
All right, so that's
we got about-
pykvm.org if anyone's interested.
We at the Iron Sysadmin obviously love Pi.
Oh yeah, I
So
love
much
Pi. Pi is awesome. Pi is awesome.
29 minutes on my timer.
Man, you're just like Mr. German over there.
What?
Got
Come
Damn it!
on. Come on, we're running out of time, guys. We're running
Get
late.
to the news!
Get
Because
to
we
the
actually
news
stand
we
a
go.
chance of getting the news done
We
tonight.
do. We've got, by my calculation, we've got a half hour left.
So this is where I
and-
should start adding stories?
No, don't add stories because you have a hard stop at 9, don't you? Do you need to leave?
I'm doing okay so far. My wife isn't
we
yelling
have-
at me,
we
and
have
the
3 news
pterodactyls aren't
stories.
screaming yet, so we're
Yeah,
good.
we don't have a ton of. Oh my gosh! All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and hit the purple button. We're gonna go into the news.
Purple button. Purple button. It's a purple button song. Purple button, purple button, purple button, purple button, purple button.
I haven't even looked at the. So there's 2 articles here I did not add. Did I? I don't think I added either of these.
I did the second one.
What's the first one here? Oh,
The first one is the hacker with the
yeah. There's
goofy
hackers.
bluish greenish nail polish.
Yeah, I see that. That's a weird picture. Usually hackers are in black
It is a weird
hoodies.
picture.
This one has nail polish.
With
I
black,
guess
with emo black fingernails.
I guess they're going for the, the hackers aren't always men in black hoodies thing here.
with chewed fingernails. Those
So-
that's a good. And that keyboard's not filthy enough.
I'm gonna fully admit that I don't know which co-host added this, and obviously they didn't make it to the show tonight.
wasn't
So maybe we don't cover this one. But
I was gonna say,
Well, no. So
I'll-
this,
You know
but
what?
this is actually
It's-
an
This is
interesting
important.
one.
it sounds like a pretty interesting story, and I did hear some tell about this in the news. So it came from baynews9.com, which apparently is a local Tampa, Florida. Why-
Florida
singing,
man. Yeah.
He's my gosh, he's
Florida
singing
man.
Christmas carols now.
Well, because it came upon a
It
midnight
came,
clear.
it
We're in
came upon
February, man.
it came upon a Bay News 9 website from Tampa, Florida.
Florida man, always a Florida man.
The top or the title is hacker changed chemical levels. Yeah. Apparently, folks, the 9.6% of my 3 philosophers is starting to catch up to me. Let me take another drink.
Hacker changed chemical levels at Florida water treatment plant. Sheriff says.
Congratulations, your bourbon must be wearing off.
Mm.
So I did hear about this only in passing, really, from, believe it or not, my father-in-law, who heard this on the news, right? This was near the Super Bowl, according to what he told me, that someone had tampered with, well, I guess at the time he told me that they suspected someone tampered with the water supply. But I got to admit, I didn't read the article. So
So here's what happened.
Go ahead.
Go
Did you
for it.
did you speed read it? Go.
speed read it. I read it at a normal human intelligent dude pace.
While
if
I
that's
was
speed reading, I guess.
While I was rambling, you read it. Good job.
No, I read
Go!
it before actually. So
Come on.
essentially, what happened? 8 o'clock in the morning, plant operator's drinking his coffee. He noticed someone's doing remote access, but he didn't think a whole lot of it because other people access the system remotely to troubleshoot problems. It was very brief access. And then at around 1:30 after lunch, maybe he's drinking a second cup, I don't know, someone was on it for about 5 minutes. And they were opening various windows, going to various control panels. And so then the dude he apparently went to the big dial that measures sodium hydroxide. And it's like the old joke about, the laser used for eye surgery. Make sure that the surgeon sets the laser to cataract surgery, not melt tank. Well, the guy turned sodium hydroxide from
100 parts per
remove
billion.
metal from drinking water to burn digestive tract out.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's
Normally,
not good.
Yeah, so sodium hydroxide, which is lye, is a normal additive. Don't be like a crazy anti-vaxxer now. Oh no, they put lye in drinking water. Yes, they do. You do about 100 parts per million to control the acidity of the water and remove certain metals. Well, the hacker increased it to 11,100 parts per million.
So you're telling me that he turned it up to 11?
He did. He turned it up to 11,000.
11,000.
Excellent Spinal Tap reference.
Nice.
And the employee, so the hacker did that, laughed evilly, and then disconnected. And the plant operator's like, that ain't good, and then turned it back down to the right level. And apparently, now of course the sheriff is going to say, no one was ever in any real danger, because it takes about 24 to 36 hours for the water to hit the actual supply. It would obviously take a while for it to saturate, and there's apparently other sanity checks where the water is checked before it's released. We'd like to think that anyway. We'd like to think that the water processing plant is checking to make sure that there's not a nice fat Duke that someone took that's floating down into the clean water supply, right?
I mean, realistically, there probably are. It's just that it's such a tiny, minuscule
No, I don't want to think about that. Don't want to think about that.
It doesn't matter.
No, it's always checked. Turds never get in. Turds never get in. La, 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 la. All right.
Go to a private well. You're going to be better off. That's all I got to say.
Even though they caught this, I have city water. Even though they caught this, there is a criminal investigation that involves the FBI and the Secret Service.
Oh, absolutely.
Obviously, was this a domestic attack? Was it an outside? Was it those pesky Ruskies? Who knows? The Chinese. Was it the Yakuza because Nate didn't install his doorbell yet? We don't know.
So
that's it.
There's some interesting takes on this as well, because there's not been that much talk about blaming it to another nation, which is usually really quick to come out.
Absolutely. It was Russia. It was a nation-state actor. It was an APT.
So
right. They haven't said that this time, which is interesting.
I think we can make a couple of assumptions, right? Because of the way it was described, this would be either using RDP or VNC.
So I've got something to tell you on that. So they are saying early days it was RDP. Come to find out it was actually TeamViewer. Now, there are mixed stories on the TeamViewer if they had it more secured or less secured or set a default password.
Is TeamViewer what the scam artists use to get you to install on your computer so they can?
Does anyone legitimately use TeamViewer?
So okay,
no, it's only for hackers in India.
I thought the same thing. All right, for what it's worth. But literally, when I was trying to get my dad's CNC machine back up and running, the legitimate company who owns this piece of software was using TeamViewer. I'm like, this has been so old. Why would you be doing that? Did you know that they actually have TeamViewer for every OS out there, including Linux and FreeBSD?
Yeah, it just seems like it's always at the root of the scam artists. That's why I always wonder.
I agree
whenever I hear TeamViewer, I'm like, oh, that's sketchy.
Yeah, just be done with it, right?
Yeah.
So it was interesting. I ended up poking around at it because my dad couldn't run it on his old XP machine anymore. So trying to download that thing or get the newest update was an issue.
I
But
can't
to
even
have this pop back up,
I can't even
It's just
imagine
crazy.
putting an XP system on the internet anymore. Did you actually like open up a web browser on your XP box and download
Oh,
TeamViewer?
no. We have a whole debt. Trust me, we got. No.
No,
no,
not
no. This thing is
Anyway.
on for all of
That's-
that's
that's
a
a
whole
scary
other
thought.
subject.
Can't you power
So
it with a
it's-
Raspberry Pi running Linux or something? Why do you have to use XP?
Ah, trust me, Nate. This was the bane of my existence to try to get it upgraded. And they're like, hey, if you want to buy a new $250,000 machine, you're
Oh
more than
my
welcome to, but we will
gosh.
not upgrade your machine or your
So
your
what's-
XP machine.
Anyway,
So what's the over/under that this was either a recently fired employee
So
who
Yeah,
still
right.
had credentials,
Insider
or
threat,
even
man,
a,
it's a real
even
thing.
a even a current employee who is maybe angry and got drunk or something?
Yep. I absolutely think it has to do more with insider threat. This was, in my opinion, most likely a domestic, to where it's somebody who was familiar with it. And if they were that close to the Super Bowl during the same time frame as the Super Bowl, it makes it seem like it's more planned. Other folks had brought that up, saying if this was also the same one or the same water line that would have been connected to Mar-a-Lago, and come to find out, no, that was not the case. But it was very
Oh, I
close near
see.
the Super Bowl.
No, I
So-
see where you're going there.
Yeah.
it's a good
Yeah.
thing we have
All
a
right.
real hacker on the podcast today.
Not a real hacker, man. Just
Except
very much into info.
Other than those fake hackers who think if they just type really fast they'll break into the system.
Yeah, well,
We-
I mean,
we- couple
that
more
is kind of
hands on
how a
the keyboard.
fuzzer works. It's just
Hey, hand
like
it to your kid.
like
They're the
inhumanly
fuzzers.
fast. Yes, kids are awesome fuzzers.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
All right, so don't drink the water in Tampa, Florida.
Yeah.
Or at least not in this specific, very small window of time, which
Time to
really
get
didn't
bottled
hurt
water.
anybody ever. Your bottled water is orange. What the hell is that?
Because again, so I'm on my my fast, so I get to flavor it with 0-calorie yada yada. So I'm just drinking flavored water today. It's okay. Everything's fine. This is
I don't
What's the
want
next
to
story.
I don't want to derail, but it's going to derail. Does fasting really work?
For me, it actually has.
Okay.
Off and on, to be honest with you. So yeah, everybody's body is different.
I'm going to drink my beer.
Yeah, enjoy your beer, man. I'll enjoy mine tomorrow.
Next time we have you on the show, we're going to make sure it's during a time when you don't have to fast.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, Mark, you included this next article about Mr. Zuckerberg, haven't you?
Oh,
So-
because I don't like Mark Zuckerberg.
So it's from, well, I don't think most people do. Anyone who uses Facebook can't possibly like him.
I'll
So
just make sure not to point my quest. Just get out of view there. So we're good now. Go ahead.
So this is from Ars Technica, and it's Zuckerberg responds to Apple's privacy policies. We need to inflict pain?
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
so this comes down to Apple adding a privacy feature where basically when you install an iOS app, it needs to ask the user for permission to track them with what's called the ID for advertiser tag across apps and websites, right? That change in policy is already in Apple's terms of service if you're an app developer. In other words, if you're developing an app on an Apple device, you're agreeing to that, but it's not going to be enforced until early spring with iOS 14.5. And Facebook, I mean, their whole business model relies on that type of tracking. So they don't want people to turn this off. Like,
Right.
they obviously want people to leave this on, and so they started singing the blues, and they told their investors expect falling revenues, and then they apparently ran a full-page newspaper ad declaring the change would hurt small businesses. Now, yeah,
Small businesses like Facebook?
and now they're apparently exploring filing a lawsuit against Apple, saying that the smartphone makers' policies are anti-competitive because of this. So basically, Tim Cook was asked. There was apparently a scandal, if you remember from 2018 with Cambridge Analytica.
Yeah.
There was this whole hoo-ha with Cambridge Analytical and Facebook.
We talked about that
And,
at length on the podcast, if I remember
yeah.
correctly.
And so Cook publicly responded to that by saying that such a scandal would never happen to Apple because Apple does not treat its customers like products. And apparently when Zuckerberg heard that, his human face fell off temporarily and his evil robot eye lasers burned a hole into a picture of Tim Cook.
Because they couldn't meet in person because of COVID, right?
Right. And he basically, Cook said when asked what he would do in Zuckerberg's position, he said, I wouldn't be in this situation. And he called Facebook's approach an invasion of privacy. And this apparently led Zuckerberg to see Apple as an opponent. So Facebook really feels that it has the right to pull this nonsense.
Yeah, right. So I mean, it is their business model, right? And their
business model.
They've never really been secretive about this. Right. We are their product. If you're a Facebook user, you are Facebook's product, right?
Yeah.
I mean, your information, your browsing habits, for example, or the things you like and dislike, and the things that you post and the things that you share. That's how they make money, right? So, I can understand why Zuckerberg feels attacked by this. But on the other hand, I completely get the stance of Apple, because Apple, I don't use Apple devices. I did try an iPhone for a little while. I talked about that on the podcast. But they do take a better approach toward privacy than most other vendors do, right? So I gotta credit them for that.
They're calling back home a whole lot less often than an Android.
Yeah. So butthurt Zuckerberg is now, he apparently told some employees close to him, we need to inflict pain, in his emotionless robotic voice, because he felt Tim Cook's comments were extremely glib and they upset my emotion chip. So,
The emotion chips never go well. Haven't you seen a single episode of Star Trek?
I've seen many episodes of Star Trek.
That's very sensitive data, right?
So this nonsense just further cements me as a loyal Apple customer. I have my iPhone. I love their stance on privacy, the end-to-end encryption, and I would, I feel bad for folk who have invested in the Oculus VR technology landscape.
Yeah.
Because Facebook has taken that over.
I think you just cut poor jscar deep.
So
I sympathize. I feel bad for him, and I keep wanting to divorce myself from Facebook, but I just can't see. I just can't quit you. Little Brokeback situation there. I wish I could quit you, Facebook.
When it comes to Quests and being able to actually utilize the Quest 2, one of my buddies who actually lives in the Midwest ended up picking one up. We created a fake Facebook account, right? The trick is with that is that you had to go through and create a profile like you were using it for OSINT, or open source intelligence gathering, whether you connect a temporary phone number to it and then a two-factor authentication like a YubiKey, and then they don't bother you. But the problem is
does Grandma know how to do that? Have you written the documentation so Grandma can do that? See, back to our beginning.
Excellent question. Well done. Both
because I don't care. I don't worry about the Josh Lowe scars in the world. I worry about Aunt Agnes.
Yeah,
right.
The same one who's forwarding all the nonsense memes that she believes every one of them, because no one would ever write something down if it were fake.
Right. But the other part to that is, after you've created a Facebook account, okay, now you can get on and play your Quest 2 games. As soon as you start connecting with other people, whether they have fake aliases on Facebook, which is obviously against the terms of use, but if Bob was to do it, you're still connecting those profiles to each other, so you're not gaining anything more by having a fake alias.
You're protecting you. You're not protecting anybody else, is the thing.
Right.
Yeah.
You are my product.
It's relational.
I will inflict pain.
All the pains. Just give me the pain.
Give me the pain. The Facebook
pain. Pain.
Yeah, I mean, I have not out and out removed my Facebook account yet, because I don't know that I ever will. But I'm definitely not using it like I used to, just because I feel like in the past couple months, maybe the past 2 years or so, it's really become just like a complete cesspool.
Well,
It's bad. It's gotten bad.
And I know I'm bad because I've got like the old Bugs Bunny cartoons. I got the devil mark on one shoulder and the angel mark on the other. And the angel mark is like, you should stop looking at Facebook. You should just, and if you are on Facebook, just look at puppy dogs. And devil mark's like, that person just posted something. You should go stir that shit up really bad.
You mean somebody's wrong on the internet?
No.
Say it
Yeah,
isn't
right.
so.
There's an XKCD about this, isn't there?
There is.
Yep.
I'll be right.
There
I'll
is.
be right there, honey. Someone's wrong on the internet.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I mean,
so that article amused me.
the
one about Zuckerberg.
the approach I've taken to social media is one to remove myself from it as much as possible. You guys might remember, well, jscar might not, unless you listened to the show where I talked about it. I talked about a book I'm reading, or a book I was reading, called Christians in the Age of Outrage.
Remember you talking about it? I haven't finished it.
And the basic gist that I've gotten from this article or from this book is that you don't necessarily have to remove yourself from social media, but you need to be more of a positive influence, right?
Yes.
It's like that's a really oversimplification. So if anybody is really interested in what the book says, I recommend go out and buy it and read it. But yeah, basically the concept there is stop being the guy that stirs the pot. Stop being the guy that is angered by everything you read on social media and start trying to contribute in a positive way to these conversations or avoiding the conversations that can't be contributed to in a positive way.
Be the change you want to see, right?
Right. So I've been trying to do that, and unfortunately the way I'm doing that is by removing myself from Facebook because everything there is negative.
Yep.
And it's
That's why I like
Because
Google
you got
Plus, man.
people
You have
like me
circles.
stirring the shit.
right, because you have people like Marc that are ruining it for everybody. So,
I
anyway,
am the one who knocks.
the one who knocks. So anyway, yeah, Facebook, not a good place to be. And
Talking
Zuckerberg.
about not a good place to be. How about this LastPass thing?
Yep,
How many of you guys got caught up in this thing?
that's where I'm going. So
What's up with that?
I have mentioned that. Marc, do you use a password manager? I seem to remember you being one of my few
No,
friends
I
who
just-
doesn't.
I just have a couple of passwords I use. I can't be bothered.
Password reuse, man. Terrible.
But they're all
You just broke jscar.
But I used to no. But listen, jscar.
I'll
Everything
listen
that's important to me uses two-factor.
Well,
So
you got
it,
that
it
at
legitimately doesn't matter if someone gets my password.
No, it
because
still
I have
matters.
two-factor.
It just doesn't matter as much.
If you lose your phone, tell me you have two different factors of two-factor, right?
I'm good. I've been around the block, dude. I get
I'm
it.
not knocking you. Don't take it as a personal offense.
Marc
I'm
feels
just talking
attacked.
to you.
We good. I feel personally attacked, and I have to go slam Josh on Facebook.
Bye. I'll have to join Facebook first because I quit Facebook like 10 years ago.
Good idea.
I wish I could quit you.
Good
Yeah,
idea.
you got out when the getting out was good. No, I and I
So-
probably should use a password manager, but
So our last article for the night comes directly from the LastPass blog. Now, some of you might remember, I don't know, it might be 10 years ago. Maybe it's more like 5 years ago. So LastPass, when they first released, maybe not when they first released, but when I first started looking at LastPass, they had their web vault, which you could get through a browser extension, and then they had a mobile app. And the mobile app was only available if you paid for LastPass Premium, right?
It was like $12, right?
It wasn't a lot of money, but at the time I was definitely in a different financial situation than I'm in now. And even paying for $12 a month, like anything that wasn't food or like housing or utilities, I was rejecting, right? And then they changed the way they were doing their mobile app. They offered mobile to anybody on their free tier, right?
Yep.
And that's when I got into LastPass.
Okay.
I never liked the idea that my passwords were being stored in the cloud, but
Right.
I saw a presentation about LastPass and about how they 12 times encrypt everything that goes into the vault, right? And your master password is the only thing that can decrypt that. And that convinced me, okay, this is the way I want to do this. I want a password manager that can synchronize across all my devices. Now the mobile app is free, and this is cool. So, but in the back of my head, I always thought they could take this away at any time. They could change the way they're doing stuff. Well, now they're changing the way they're doing stuff. So, LastPass, in the meantime, between when I started using it and now, was purchased by, wasn't it like GoToMyPC or something?
LogMeIn.
LogMeIn.
Because that's what I used to use instead of the other stuff that we were talking about earlier.
Nice. So it was purchased by LogMeIn, and at the time that it happened, I was worried, but things didn't really shake up too much. So I thought, okay, cool. I'm going to keep using LastPass until things go south. Things have started, in my opinion, to go south because this blog is basically about how they're changing their free tier plan. Now, in the meantime, I purchased LastPass Premium, right? Because I want to be able to share with my wife. Because there's certain passwords that we need to be able to share, especially if anything were ever to happen to me. Things like bank account logins and stuff like that, like places that we pay our bills. That's the kind of thing that she's going to want to have access to. And they're not passwords that I even know. I use randomly generated passwords, 32 characters long. I couldn't tell you what these passwords are, or if I tried, I depend on my password vault to fill these in.
Yep.
So, anyway, LastPass is now changing the game for free users. Now, again, this doesn't affect me specifically, but it does make me worry about the future of LastPass. What they're doing now is if you have mixed logins between a desktop and a mobile client, that's not going to work on your free tier anymore. And basically what you're going to have to do is after, I think it was March
16th.
March 16th, they're going to basically make you choose. Right. So if you're a mobile user and you use nothing but mobile, not much is going to change for you, except that you're going to have to basically declare that you're using mobile LastPass, or you're using desktop LastPass. Right. And desktop would be the browser. You can still use it on unlimited devices in whichever platform you choose, but you're going to have to pick one or the other. Mm-hmm. For me, that's kind of a game changer because I use it on desktop and I use it on mobile, right? Now, again,
that's part of the great part about it.
Right. Again, I'm a LastPass Premium user, so it doesn't affect me. My wife, however, who I share my passwords with, is still a free account, right? Mm-hmm. We don't pay for her account. We pay for my account because I have the ability to share with her. She didn't need a premium account, right?
Right.
So basically what this means is my wife's account is going to work only on her mobile devices now instead of on her desktop and her mobile. And to me, that's kind of a big deal. So personally, I've started looking at Bitwarden because I don't like where this is going and I don't like what this might mean for the future. Yeah.
So I was also super leery about getting into password managers. I waited until LastPass actually got hacked and then found out and looked at their disclosure, and they were upfront with it.
Yeah.
It was legit. They made sure to keep their hashes and their salts separate from each other, where other folks who don't do that, you're just putting all the keys of the kingdom in one location. So I was a late adopter to LastPass, but I think I've been using it for like 4 or 5 years now and slowly gotten other folks onto it. I did the same thing. I bought and paid for it because I also wanted to turn on the two-factor authentication.
Yep.
And then I wanted to add my wife to be able to go through and get into any of the things because at that point in time, my job, I was traveling. If I got hit by a bus, then I wanted to make sure she could get into everything, right? And then starting to encourage like my mom, my dad, and my grandmother to go through and get on that. Mom got into it, no problem. So I bought her a LastPass subscription. So hey, let's just start putting everything in here. You got the phone with the fingerprint reader, so you can do biometrics to get into your password. It can be really convenient. Instead of them using the same password every place, you just create a new unique password everywhere you go.
Yeah.
And this move is unfortunate. I'm just coming up to my paid year, and I am going to honestly start looking at Bitwarden as well. I know at work they had gone through and done Bitwarden, And then they also have gone through and done their code review for Bitwarden, which is awesome. So you can see where the parts are that were having issues, what they went and fixed. So it's not just open source, it's open source and verified because they had people go and check for vulnerabilities and then have them go fix that, which is awesome.
The thing I like about Bitwarden, and they're not the only password manager that does this, but you can self-host your vault, which is kind of cool. I didn't go that far because, again, my intention is to make this a thing that I could share with my wife.
Right.
And I don't know the implications of self-hosting versus just hosting in their cloud. If one of those implications is that, you know, if I am hit by a bus and those servers get turned off because no one's there to manage them anymore, the vault goes away. I don't know if I want that to be a problem. So, you know, that's a thing to think about when you're self-hosting your password vault. But, so yeah, I mean, I'm not advocating that everyone switch away from LastPass, but I don't like this. I don't like that they're switching the way these terms work. It kind of concerns me. Especially when it's, I mean, your passwords are kind of your life nowadays, right?
They should be, right?
Yeah. So, you know,
but
be
at
aware.
the same time, it's a free service, right? So we're the product somewhere in here. So we either need to pay for it, or we had our free lunch or our free beer.
Right.
Now it's time to go find other places.
I imagine that this was a business case, right? And maybe making this move makes more people pay for LastPass. And more people paying for LastPass means that LastPass may live longer, right? Because they're making money.
Right.
So maybe it's not such a bad thing, but it does, I don't know, me, in the perspective that I'm looking at it, I feel like I'm a little worried for LastPass. I hear Marc's timer going off.
My
2
timer-
hours now, Marc.
And since I don't have a password manager in play, I really have nothing to say on this topic.
We're only
makes me a little sad.
Only at 1 hour and 56, Marc. Your timer is apparently faster than mine.
Well, I was trying to give you a little bit of a buffer.
Wiggle space.
Wiggle it
So,
just a little bit. Go.
if you're
Wiggle it
using
just a little
LastPass,
bit. Use LastPass. Wiggle it.
if you're
Just a
no,
little
no,
bit.
you're not
Orbit
listening.
Warden.
You're not
Wiggle
listening,
it
Marc.
Just a little bit. Or just write the
If
password down
you-
on a notebook next to your computer. Wiggle it just a little bit. Or use your luggage combination. Wiggle it just a
1, 2, 3, 4,
one.
5.
Yeah.
That's the kind of code an idiot would use on their luggage.
It's my luggage combination.
What color
Okay.
is the unclemarc button? That's a good question. Oh,
There's
It's rainbow colored.
no, it's light blue.
All the colors of the rainbow.
There you go. So anyway, if you're using LastPass free, you need to know that this change is coming. If you didn't know this change is coming, well, you're going to want to
Don't
look
use
into it.
LastPass free. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So LastPass Premium is not expensive.
time
It's
to
still
jump in.
it still is not expensive. So if you like LastPass, go ahead, stick with it if you want to. I'm not telling people they need to switch away from LastPass. I'm simply saying that if you're using it free, you need to know this is coming, and it's really going to impact the way you're using LastPass. So, valid
Just a
thing
public service
to
announcement.
keep in
Or
mind.
at this point, go vote with your wallet. If you want to be able to continue using the service,
Right.
throw them a couple bucks. I think it's $3 a month, or if you go to the family plan, it's $4 a month. So
Yeah,
go vote with
really,
your wallet.
it really isn't expensive. Now, it used to be even cheaper, right? So the price has gone up since it was bought. Again, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Obviously, they're running a service that people need. That service costs money, right? So I'm not the sort of guy that's going to tell you every time the price goes up, you should just, ditch them and find a different service. They must have their reasons. I hope it's not greed. That's all I got to say. All right. So that's the end of our news. We're short on news tonight, which is probably a good thing because we're already at almost 2 hours. And
30 seconds out of 2 hours.
It's kind of the way it is. So, folks, I hope you've enjoyed tonight's show. Let me find my show notes here so I can go through the usual closing. If you want to watch us live, generally we're the second and fourth Thursday of every month. Obviously, this episode has been an exception, and next episode, I already said, we're probably not going to be doing, just because life has gotten in the way. But yeah, that'll be a thing. That'll be a thing to think about. We should be back mid-March or end of March. This is the second episode in March. We should be back to our usual schedule. So we'll see you hopefully in about a month. If we can get an episode in the middle, that might happen. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm sorry, I can't make any promises. If you do want to watch us live, you should go check out our YouTube channel, or if you don't like YouTube, go check us out on Twitch, because we multi-stream now. Also, if you want to chat directly with us, you should go check out the Discord community. Again, there will be a link in the description, plus on ironsysadmin.com. You can, go join the Discord community through there. Did I say it right, Mark? Discord? Discord.
I'm not even paying attention anymore. I'm just gonna, because I don't want to weep.
You're just like,
I mean, it sounded okay.
You're like, whatever, it's fine.
Whatever.
All right, you can find us on the socials. We're still on Facebook, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Facebook.com/ironsysadmin. Twitter. Yeah, we're not on MySpace. Twitter.com/ironsysadmin. You can. Those are the primary ways to find us. We're not anywhere else. I'm just going to be honest.
Live journal.
You can subscribe to us wherever you find podcasts, and if you find that we're not listed somewhere, please let us know, and we'll try to get ourselves listed. And if you want to support the show monetarily, you can do so via Patreon, patreon.com/ironsysadmin, or you can buy merch like the K-pop say.
Bring out the swag.
And with that, folks, I think we're done for the night. So,
peace!
If any of you have final thoughts, go ahead and get them out.
Watch my stream!
Twitch.tv
Recterm!
Yeah, watch Marc's stream.
Watch me fly airplanes.
Watch the old man.
Oh, and I just picked up Valheim, that new survival game. So I might stream some of that. Valheim's Viking survival game. You're a Viking in purgatory, and you have to. It's a survival game. It's supposed to be. It's really well rated.
So what we're saying,
think like super violent Minecraft with better graphics and Vikings.
Super violent Minecraft with better graphics and Vikings. You sold me. That's totally great.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's time to go buy it.
All right,
Thanks
folks.
for having me on, guys.
So apparently, Squadcast is telling us we only have a few minutes left, so we better end it here. Yes. What the hell is that? It's like, are you really still going? Please stop.
Stop! You're filling my buffers. My buffers. I thought it was super cool to have jscar on rather than just being a little line in tech chat. He's actually a person. You can see that.
Is real.
Yeah, this has been fun. So
that was
we
a dumb
will.
Noise. But yeah.
It's great hanging out with you guys as always.
It's been fun having you on, and maybe we'll make this a repeat thing. So
Yay!
Right.
Yay!
Wait, hold on.
Discord.
No, that was the wrong one. Whatever.
That's awesome.
All right, folks. We'll catch you on the next show, and have a good one. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, or, whatever you're doing to consume the podcast. We appreciate it. Have a good one.
Hopefully you're drinking.